Hi, psychology people. Today I want to take a second and go over your next set of slides. It's on chapter 4 or segment unit, whatever you want to call it for, which highlights states of consciousness. So the first thing your slides do is they define consciousness. So what is that, right? So consciousness is just kind of being aware of our senses, our thoughts, our surroundings, our mental processes, all that, right? At any given specific time, right? And there are two types. So we have the awakened consciousness. We also have an altered states of consciousness, okay? So when we talk about waking consciousness, we're talking about what's happening when we're awake, while we're present. We're aware of our surroundings, and then altered state of consciousness, we're a little less there for it. You know what I mean? So the first thing that your book kind of jumps into is sleep. So sleep is kind of this weird area because it's not real. You're not aware of what's going on, but especially in the beginning stages of sleep, and it goes over like the phases. You're kind of present, but then all of a sudden you're like knocked out, right? And that right there is called REM. REM stands for rapid eye movement sleep. Now, if you've ever watched somebody sleep and engage in REM, and it's kind of weird when you watch adults do it. So, all right. So, but if you've ever watched a baby, see, that's socially acceptable, right? You watch a baby sleep and they'll be sleeping and their eyes will be going crazy, like just fluttering and flickering and, and almost kind of doing that while they're sleeping. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? That's REM, rapid eye movement sleep. And that's the last phase or stage in the sleep cycle, right? So what goes on there is that's when you're getting that deep sleep, that good sleep, that drooling sleep, when your heart rate changes and your blood pressure and your breathing and erections are formed and all types of things. That's when you're dreaming. Most of your dreaming happens, right? That's called REM. So that's that good sleep. That's that sleep that you feel refreshed after, right? So we all need that, okay? And there are certain people who might not get enough of that, or certain people get a lot of that, right? But for the people who don't get enough of that, it's weird because there's something called a rebound effect, where people who aren't sleeping as much as other people and aren't able to get as much REM, they spend actually more time, like a higher percentage of time in REM sleep when they do sleep for the small amount of time that they're sleeping. So it kind of makes up for it. So there are also, your slides also go over dreams. Okay, there are different theories on dreams, and your slide highlights 3 of them, right? So the first one is the unconscious wish fulfillment theory. First of all, what I love about these theories is they sound exactly like what they are. So for that theory, you're dreaming about something that you wish could happen. So you might dream about swimming in money, right? You might dream about graduating high honors, right? Like you're gonna. So that's kind of what those dreams are about. Dreams for survival. The theory behind that is that you're dreaming and you're kind of working through and reprocessing something that already happened, or looking towards the future of a way that you can navigate difficult situations. So you're learning, you're working on improving yourself, and that's what dreams for survival are. I don't know about everybody. I've heard a lot of people just from talking. I don't have any like clinical information on this or any statistical information, but I can tell you when I was pregnant and when a lot of people I know were pregnant, you get these dreams and they're very primitive and very protective in nature. And they're definitely like, they might be a little bit of unconscious wish. They might be a little bit of dreams for survival, but they feel like so real and just so protective, but they also might be this third, and this is the activation synthesis theory. And what this is it's honestly just like random spouts of energy and electrical signals just going random. So it's just random. So those are the 3 that your slides highlight. So I want you to be familiar with those, okay? I think that your discussion post is on that, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely take that in. And we have all types of sleep disturbances. We have, they're listed out, but I'm going to go over them just so we're clear as to what each one is. So insomnia. That's when people have a super hard time sleeping. So if you've ever met somebody who really just can't sleep, or they might go to sleep for a few and then wake up and struggle getting back to sleep or something like that, they might suffer from insomnia. Sleep apnea is another one that the slides highlights. And that's when people have a hard time breathing in their sleep. And you might hear, like, if you've ever been around a snorer when they sleep in, sometimes what will happen is they're snoring, they're breathing, and all of a sudden they stop. And then they'll pick up again breathing, or either they might start coughing, right? That's sleep apnea. And there are treatments out there for that, because that can be potentially fatal. Sometimes it is benign and it's not like the biggest deal in the world, but sometimes it can be very harmful. So if you do know somebody who sleeps like that, make sure that they're aware of it, and that they've talked to their PCP or whoever about it. Night terrors is another one. Just like nightmares, except you can't remember what the bad dream was about. Like, you wake up, you're freaking out, you're sweating, you're kind of going crazy. So that's another one. You see that a lot in like early childhood. Narcolepsy is another one. These are narcolepsy, and what's interesting about narcolepsy is it can look very different. Like, a lot of times people always think of narcolepsy as a disorder in which people just fall asleep on the spot, right? It's not always like that. So I've known a few different people with narcolepsy, and sometimes, like, one person I know with narcolepsy, she used to only just fall asleep in the car. But it was every single ride, which could be potentially very dangerous, especially like she used to be riding the T or, public transportation, and now all of a sudden, boom, she's out. That can be very dangerous. So it looks different in different people, but it is one of the sleep disturbances listed here. Also, sleep talking and sleepwalking. Those are things that you see in little kids. What's interesting about sleep talking, to address first. I always ask my class, like, oh, do you know anybody who sleep talks? And everybody always says, yeah, I know such and such, or I sleep talk, or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, can people get real answers out of you when you sleep? And I get such a mix, depending on who I'm talking to and what their experiences are. It might be like, no one can get anything, or sometimes it's like, yeah, I say this very clearly, or whatever. So it's very interesting, because it's like something that they're not really aware of, but they're doing. They'll have full-fledged conversations, or sometimes just like babbling almost. And then sleepwalking, it's not like what you see in the movies. It's not, it's not that, right? It almost looks like the person is awake. It does look like the person's awake. But the person is not awake, and they're not really aware of what's going on around them. So when they wake up in the morning, they don't remember the whole interaction. My little one, when he was younger, he used to sleepwalk a lot. And I didn't know he was sleepwalking until I started teaching this course, actually. So it was like, he would come out to me, we would talk after his bedtime, and then I'd put him back. He'd be like, oh, Mom, I want to get in your bed. I'd put him back in my bed if he wants, whatever. And then in the morning, he'd be like, Mom, why'd you put me in your bed? He had no recollection of anything. I've had students tell me about things that have happened to them, whether it was, oh, I went out and lit the stove when I slept, when I was sleepwalking, or when I was little, I used to leave the house. So sleepwalking can be very, very, very dangerous. It's not always like harmless. So it is something to note. What's next? Circadian rhythms. Your slides go over circadian rhythms. What those are 24-hour cycles in which we do basic biological things. Okay, so if you think about it, we are kind of on the same schedule all the time, right? We usually go to sleep around the same time. We usually wake up around the same time, even down to our bathroom breaks. Like, we know that at this time we're using the bathroom for the most part, right? Even like, if you think of it, when kids, like, especially in elementary school, when it's time to use the bathroom, everybody goes as a group at the same time every day, right? And so it's our basic biological cycles that we're using, those 24-hour cycles. And what's interesting about circadian rhythms as well is it's not just 24 hours, it could be annual. So keep that in mind. So when your slide talks about SAD or seasonal affective disorder, that's an annual disorder where people become more depressed in the wintertime. Now, why? Is it because the days are shorter? Is it because it's colder? Is it because the holidays make people depressed? It could be any of that stuff, but we're on those 24-hour cycles. Even people who are not necessarily on the same 24-hour cycle as everybody else, like for instance, there are early birds and night owls, right? So if you're a night owl, you're one of those people who are up all times of the nights. Me, right? Early birds, people who can get up and just be like, hi, right? But they're on those schedules every day. They know exactly, I go to bed at this time, I wake up at that time. So at this point in your slides, there's a shift, right? So your slides start talking about different types of consciousness outside of like sleep and things having to do with that type of stuff. So they talk about daydreaming. We all know what that is. It's just when you're awake and you're having fantasies and you're just kind of zoning out and you're like, right? Daydreaming. Hypnosis. And hypnosis isn't like it's been portrayed on TV. It's not, oh, you're getting sleepy and somebody has a watch and the person's like, and they're like, oh, wake up, you're a cat. And they're like, yeah, right? It's none of that. Hypnosis it's like a trance-like state of heightened susceptibility. So when you engage in hypnosis, you kind of have to give yourself completely to the person who's hypnotizing you. Now, some people believe it works and some people don't. A lot of people use it for all types of different reasons, like athletes will use it when training. People who are trying to quit substance use will use it, or weight loss. People use it for all types of reasons. So the notion behind it is, if you believe in it, it will work. Me personally, still not sure how I feel about it, but I wouldn't let it happen. So, I don't know. Think for a sec as to whether or not you believe in it and if you would engage in it, right? Let me see. What else? Oh, meditation. This is a learned technique for refocusing attention. I've never meditated myself, but everybody who I've ever spoken to about meditation talks about how difficult it is. By doing this, you bring in like an altered state of consciousness, and it's almost like you transcend apparently. But it's really good because it just kind of revamps everything. It gets all your bodily functioning and your systems in order. Your mind is clear. It's amazing. And I keep saying every year I'm going to start. And this is going to be the year. So that's meditation. And then your slides also go into drugs. So what I really want you to hone in on, like you guys can look at the individual drugs on your own. It explains everything in those slides. But I want you to know that psychoactive drugs influence the way a person's mental state and behaviors are. Okay? I also want you to know that addictive drugs produce biological or physiological dependence in the user. Okay? So what does that mean? Biological is going to result in some type of withdrawal. Okay, so if you don't get that drug, you're going to have some physical symptoms as a result of that. The physiological dependence, it's that need that, oh my goodness, I need this drug or else my world is going to come crashing down on me. And this might be for something that's like a typical everyday stressor, right? So take a second and think. Like, so everybody always thinks I'm talking about like extreme hardcore street drugs. Not necessarily. Take a second and think about, for those of you who are coffee drinkers, right? If you were that person who drinks a coffee every single morning, what happens when you don't get your coffee? Do you get a headache? Do you get shaky? If somebody talks to you, do you snap at them and go off? Who are you talking to? Hey, I didn't get my coffee yet. Do you do that, right? Think about that. Those are all aspects of withdrawal and all aspects of addiction and dependency. And it's of something simple like a coffee. Like everybody goes to Dunkies in the morning, right? So just consider that. Also, people can get addicted to other things. Like for my firstborn, I had the epidural when I was giving birth, and that's just like a little needle they give you in your back to give you some pain relief, right? So you don't feel everything. And after I had given birth, all of a sudden my legs started shaking like crazy. And I thought something was wrong with me. I was pretty young. So I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm dying, right? And they said, no, that's just the withdrawal from the drugs, because it was like a morphine-based drug. So just sometimes we do have withdrawals from things, whether it's Diet Coke, whether it is cigarettes, whether it is cocaine, whatever it is. A lot of times we do withdraw from from drugs in general, right? What do the withdrawal symptoms look like? So, as I said, you guys can go over that a little more in depth on your own. If you have any questions for me, please always reach out. And I'll be back with another video.